Hello. Hi, everyone. So happy to have you back again this week. I'm Shellen Briand, and I have with me here today Heather Black, the founder of Supermoms and best-selling author of Become a Super Salesforce Consultant. So, Heather, I'm excited to continue our weekly sessions of your A to Z book, and we have made our way to how to identify and empower employees as Salesforce champions.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting topic today, and it's one that's not talked about a lot, really, that there is a strategy to it. So yeah, be interesting to work through that with you today, with you all. And if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them as well.
Yes, exactly. And this is something I never really gave a whole lot of thought to in terms of having the strategy. Having the champion felt more like the person who was excited about it versus necessarily that strategy of a champion. But why don't you dive into what can go wrong when you don't have strategic champions as part of a Salesforce project?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, most of the chapters in the book start with what can go wrong, because I think a lot of us can empathize with, oh, okay, that's how, there's a reason why things don't always go to plan, and there's a logical reason, right? So for those that are newer on your journey, you can definitely mind the gap by learning this right now and sort of having this in mind. So with every chapter I start, so there's three key things that I've highlighted in the chapter for this particular topic around what can go wrong. The first is without champions in each team and department, you can actually struggle with user adoption, and you might end up with low user adoption because there isn't that person that's excited. So you do want champions that are excited. It's a very important trait, but it's one of the traits that they need. And we'll talk about some other traits as we go through, because you want people who are in that department seeing and hearing what's going on, supporting them, getting them excited about it, but also say flagging where there may be sort of pain points and sort of being able to absorb that information and feeding it back to the Salesforce team. We can talk about different roles and responsibilities, but one is, yes, without that is, what is it? I always think of the acronym, but the ears around in the departments, you don't really know what's going on. So it's good to have champions in the different departments. The second is champions can be delegated admins, and without a set of delegated admins, it can mean that everything is on the Salesforce admin, maybe as a solo Salesforce admin, and they can be really busy doing a lot of stuff like doing reports and things that really isn't what an admin should be doing. Delegated champions should be doing reports for teams and their departments on a daily basis, whereas an administrator should be building all of the flows and the more technical requirements behind the scenes. So champions are part of your delegated admin team. So as I say, it can put too much heavy load on your central technical team and not use their time in the best way. The third is that if you don't have any formal structure around managing champions, then it can be a little bit of a mishmash of who, what is their role? What is expected of them? Are they actually doing it in the way you expected? Have they been trained up in it? And so actually nominating champions can be very wishy-washy, mishmash of actually achieving nothing substantially, because people aren't clear on, as I say, that what their roles and responsibilities are. There isn't a formal communication structure to manage communication back and forth with them. And it doesn't really formalize into anything. It becomes very tokenistic. So that's what can go wrong without it, is you won't have any champions enabled, which will affect your level of adoption with the organization.
So what can champions do? So if you're taking some of that away from your central team, what can these champions really do in a practical sense?
Oh, well, they could do everything. They could, they could. I think it's a decision within the organisation, and you might have different levels of champion depending on what different departments need, what the skills or capabilities or time available of that person. So at the very top level, a champion could be like a delegated admin. They could have delegated admin rights to do certain things in the system and organisation. Obviously, that requires them to be given the authority and time to do that. Or a champion could be that they are just gathering needs and requirements from the team. They could be trained as a business analyst, and taken to that level, or they could just be there to be the ears and eyes on the ground and to sort of flag things and to raise that to the Salesforce admin to say, look, there's a few things come up here. Could we do a BA workshop around it? And you come in and sort of do it. The middle ground is, they could train end users. So when any new user comes into the team and organization, they're training people on it. They could be the ones raising cases for the central support team. So again, if things get flagged and raised, they could log cases. So there's a range of different levels of things they could do. The other one, actually, sorry, on my list here, is they could analyze user adoption issues. They could manage data integrity for that team and that department because they understand what's right and what's not. So there is a set of list of things that I've got in the book that they could do. And it's really down to, different champions might have different responsibilities in the organization. It doesn't have to be one size fit all, but it's looking at what could they do and how could they, how would they be rewarded for that as well.
Perfect. And you mentioned the book. Why don't you take a moment for anyone who perhaps hasn't heard about your book, which it's been all over the place, so that's unlikely, but just for those who haven't heard, maybe just give a little synopsis of why you wrote it, what's it about, and what's the value of having it. And I have included the links and added those into the comments if anyone would like to go ahead and get a copy.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shannon. Yes, the book is there to equip you of how to lead a Salesforce project with an A to Z guide. So I've broken down in a chronological order how, all the things you need to think about if you're leading a Salesforce project from a professional skill set point of view rather than technical skill set point of view. There are some technical elements in there, but it kind of gives that overview of, these are all the things I need to think about, and really draws on the professional skill sets of business analysis, change management, agile project management, as the overriding, what I call the hat trick skills. And then those sort of key skill sets are then sort of broken down into more detail as we sort of go through the journey. So it's about how do you set yourself up for success, set up the project for success, through to then evaluating the project and analyzing it, through to training users, and then user adoption and rollout and evaluating the project at the end. So it just is that step-by-step element. The key thing of it all really is, and I said about this specific chapter, with every sort of element we look at, it is about minding the gap. Like, we want to make sure that you're aware of what can go wrong and how to get it right, because sometimes if you don't realize what can go wrong, it's not as poignant maybe for you to pay attention to it, whereas you go, okay, I get it now, I've seen or heard this before, these are things I can do differently and make sure I accommodate. It's your checklist really for any project.
Perfect. Thank you. And back to the champions, how would you recommend that an organization and team go about selecting the champions?
Well, it's a bit like it's almost like putting people through a formal interview. I remember mentoring an organization earlier on where, they'd just chosen people who were excited about it, who had some experience with Salesforce. The problem is they're not always the best people. Like, you want people who are excited, but you also need people that have the time, that have the right skill sets for what you want them to do. And say, knuckling down on what you want them to do is really important. Making sure that their manager is bought into them doing this, understanding their motivation for doing it. They don't just want to stick it on their CV, as an added value thing to go. What is their motivation for doing it? And equally, it's important for the organization to think how they're going to reward that person for that added responsibility, how they might train them up, what are they going to get, a salary increase, everything like that. So you want job roles and responsibilities. You want expectations of what is expected of them on a weekly, a monthly, quarterly basis, what they would be doing. And that you're interviewing them on that basis, really, that you're saying, we're looking for Salesforce champions. This is what we're looking for. Particularly if they're training people, you need to make sure that they're good at training people and they have experience of that. If they're going to do business analysis, have they done anything like that before? It's not so you can't train them, and it absolutely might be what you offer to them, but you want to look at attributes and skills and experience where you can see that they would be good at that and you can practice that. So going back to that first question that we looked at, get really clear on what you want somebody to do. Write the job spec related to that. This might be an added on to their current job, so it's not like they're going to move into this as a full-time job, but it's an addition and an amendment to their current job. And you interview them based on that basis. And then you can select people and they're bought into it, because I think what's really nice is that they become your team. Like, particularly if you're a solo administrator, you don't want to think of yourself actually as a solo administrator, because around you, you should have Salesforce champions in your organization. You should have a team of other Salesforce champions, you know, that you get together with on a monthly or a quarterly basis to discuss what Salesforce is doing, what you need it to do, you know, into what are the new releases and what are the new apps, and to sort of enjoy the fun bit as well around what the CRM roadmap could be, you know, because it's nice to have people that are into Salesforce like you and excited about all the new shiny features. And in between those meetings, you want to get them participating in a communication channel. So, you know, you're connected as a team. So that might be a Slack channel, you know, or something else in your organization. And there's that way of communicating as a group, long-term, managing requirements, managing cases, you know, discussing new releases, that, you know, there's this formal structure. So you want somebody who's really bought into that bigger picture, because that's going to give you, you know, that second tier of your governance structure.
Do you have any other suggestions on how to engage the champions throughout the year outside of that sort of regular communication and meeting cadence?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting about how, you know, how do you manage them? Because their manager might not know anything about Salesforce. And so, you know, who are they accountable to for what they're doing? I think you really have to get the managers bought in, and the managers need to recognize and value their attribution to the team. And it goes back to the ROI. And actually, we will be talking about KPIs, and that's chapter K. And you know, if the manager sees that this champion is bringing value to the team and the organization in terms of, you know, improving sales targets, improving the sales operations of the sales team so they make more deals, that Salesforce champion needs to really think about their value and share and talk about their value that they're bringing to that team, so their manager hears it too, because then the manager recognizes their value. And you want a progression plan for them, particularly, you know, to sort of retain them and to keep them. We're talking about progression plans this week at Supermums. That's this week's blog. And so it's really important that Salesforce champions are equally sort of able to understand their value, talk about it, represent that, because I think if the managers value them and their pay increase, you know, represents that as well, you know, maybe not straight away, but obviously there's a progression plan there, then, you know, that's what you want. And if we think about where this role can sit, quite often if you're in a sales team, it would be the sales ops team. You know, this person will become part of the sales ops team. And you might not think that's a job role for Salesforce admin, but the reality is that's where you might get is delegated admin as part of the sales op team. And the similar would be for customer service. So I think it's just about having a really good structure around it, and being, you know, very intentional about that plan for Salesforce champions.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think this lends to the conversation around the consultancy course a bit for those who are really intrigued about learning how to become just a super Salesforce consultant, either really elevating their current role or moving into consultancy. The book is such a great resource, but so is the course that you designed specifically. And it is the only one of the Supermums courses that you personally teach. You want to give just a quick overview of the consultancy course, why you started it, and what the value is of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody's progressing as a Salesforce champion, we have the admin course and the consultancy skills course. The consultancy skills course will teach them the hat-trick skills of business analysis, how to gather the requirements, how to document the requirements, and then how to propose solutions, looking at the different products. So if somebody's got a problem, they can say, oh, well, we could do this, we could do that. So they start to understand, you know, the questions and the technical solutions that are applicable. We also cover change management, how to engage and enthuse users throughout the journey and how to bring them on board, and to think about that stakeholder management piece, which they will be doing as a Salesforce champion. And then you've also got agile project management, which is very much looking at how do you prioritize requirements in time and budget to make sure that you're focusing on the most important things first for that team and that organization that are what we call must-haves and essential requirements. So all of those things are really important. They're skills that a champion could well need, you could upskill in. Similarly, if they're going to be delegated admin now and doing any technical work, you could train them up as a Salesforce administrator. And so we have our accelerator course at Supermums, which is a quick fixed course. If they've got the system, they don't need necessarily work experience, etc. So it's a great quick course that they can do. If we have our ultimate program as well, which provides work experience and mentoring and everything else, but typically is for people that don't have access to a Salesforce system. So we can train people up in admin and consultancy skills at Supermum. So we'd love to help support you in developing your Salesforce team and your champions for sure.
Excellent. And, this seems like such a perfect way for someone who's really seriously considering a pivot into a Salesforce career to look at becoming a champion. Do you have any advice for someone who may be part of an organization that doesn't have quite their act together in terms of the champion program, but how to approach the Salesforce team or someone on the team to become a champion or to get involved in, not a full-time role, but just an expansion or an enhancement to what they're doing now?
So I would obviously buy the book, read the chapter, and really appraise your skills against what is possible and present yourself. It's like getting a job anywhere, really. Always you want to present yourself in the best light relative to what you think their skills are and that they need. So kind of understand what a champion does. Think about, do I have these skills already? Do I need to upskill myself in some of these areas? Or maybe you'd say to them, look, I'm really keen on this, but could you upskill me in some of these areas? I'd be really keen to. Show them your motivation, your attributes. Obviously, if you're looking this to pivot, maybe to leave the company, that may not work in your favor. But if you can certainly use this to build your experience, for a first 1 or 2 years, maybe show them that you're interested in developing Salesforce admin skills. And maybe if they're looking to hire into a Salesforce admin role, they could think about hiring you internally. I know certainly some organizations would be definitely up for that and open for it. And actually having backups is really valuable. It's really important that they do have, not just one person that knows the system, that they've got backups. So, work through, how you can present yourself and put yourself forward for it, for sure, based on, what is possible.
Perfect. And my last question is, if you're someone who is a champion or has had that opportunity or will have that opportunity, and you're interested in pivoting your career fully into Salesforce, how would you recommend that somebody feature that on their LinkedIn profile, CV, or resume to showcase that interest and capability in the Salesforce ecosystem to a potential employer when they don't actually have the direct relevance Salesforce experience that they may be posting about?
Well, if you're a champion, you will have done either some of those delegated admin roles. So you will be an admin in fact, but you might have just done, business analysis or data integrity or training. So as a Salesforce champion, you can call yourself a Salesforce admin to some degree. Depends if you've got the certification or not, and whether you've gone that far down the line. But I would be talking about all of those potential admin responsibilities that you might have had as a delegated admin. So you might present yourself as a Salesforce champion or as a Salesforce delegated admin, and then obviously articulate the things you've done beneath that, which will certainly, work towards it. I think if you're applying for a Salesforce admin role, you want to have the admin training and certification on your CV. Personally, at Supermums, we teach the authorized Salesforce training course, the AJX 201, because we believe it is the most reputable course out there. It covers all the relevant content to get the certification. It's the one designed by Salesforce, and it means that you know that you've covered absolutely everything that is possible. Whereas if you've done a lot of self-study, you know, or the courses, they may not cover everything. So you always want to train yourself up to a standard that people are going to feel that they can trust, you know, and have a training course so they go, okay, I know that they will have covered X, Y, Z in that course. And so, you know, reputable training is really important. That's going to help you get that next job as an administrator.
Perfect. Thank you. And then any last words of wisdom regarding the champion or preview into next Tuesday's session?
Oh, well, hopefully, I mean, I hope that's just been useful, because I think it's a lot of things that people miss. We have, as I say, we're talking about job roles and responsibilities, chapter J, next week. And that's really looking at how do you form a Salesforce team? How do you get that glue working? Because quite often it's, you know, you're a pop-up team. Everybody has maybe their own other jobs going on, or you're managing multiple projects, but you've got to come together as a team and glue together and work in a really functional way. So next week we're going to be leading on to, okay, we've talked about who the champions are, but then how do we get a team working really well? So hopefully you'll join us for next week to talk about chapter J.
Perfect. That'll be another great discussion. So thank you for joining today, Heather. And we appreciate everyone for, you know, listening in and learning as we go through A to Z. And we'll see you next Tuesday, same time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.